Good morning, everyone. I hope you are well. Wishing everyone a Chodesh Tov, a good Chodesh, a happy Chanukah, Chanukah Sameach, a Lichtige Chanukah. Welcome, everyone, to our special edition of the learning program in the morning, in which we will be discussing various themes and insights into Chanukah. So, firstly, I want to dedicate this learning. Firstly, to the Yortzites that we have today. The Yortzites list is as follows: in memory of Elisheva Bas Michal Bernstein, Yaakov Ben Shlomo Cohen Curtis, Bas Yaakov Erdman, Hinda Bas Yitzchak Gaili, and Yisrael Yuvia Ben Abba Moshe Wolfson, as well as those saying Kaddish for Leah Bas Fiver, Rav Yaakov Tzvi Ben David Aryeh, Sevi Bas Mordechai, Avram Ben David Slavin, Shon Ben Yisrael Morris, Ben Fegel Bas Ruven Bach, Shon Ben Eleli, Ben Bas Fiver, Shoshana Bas Yaakov Shmuel, Caleb Bela Bas Henach, Yechiel Ben Moshe Eliezer, Sarah Marka Bas Binyamin. We'd also like to dedicate this learning for a Fuah Shalema. If somebody's having a procedure, their daughter's having a procedure, Liora Bas Batcha should have a Fuah Shalema. So, a couple of thoughts and ideas relating to Chanukah. So, if I was to ask you about this story surrounding Chanukah, I think we would all be in agreement fundamentally, despite we've learned various themes over the last few days. But the story fundamentally that we are all familiar with from a young age is of a miracle on the battlefield that resulted in the Hasmoneans, small band of men managed to overcome the mighty Greek Empire and army, and then they managed to rededicate the temple after the defiling of the temple by the Hasmoneans and the Maccabees, after the defiling by the Greeks. So what happened next? We all know that they needed to rekindle the menorah, and they couldn't find, all the oil had been contaminated. This is the way we're told the story as kids. All the oil was contaminated, and you need pure oil with the seal of the high priest, so that we know that it is pure, the purest of oils, and has not been made impure. And they could not find any. And eventually, after a long and arduous search, they managed to find one small flask. One flask, that was all they could find in order to light the menorah. And that led to them lighting that menorah, and instead of it lasting for one day, it lasted for 8 days. We're all familiar with that. But there is a very, very obvious question. So yesterday we asked the question about why is it 8 days and 7 days, and we gave various answers. Today we want to deal with another of the most famous questions relating to Chanukah, and that is, why is it that they needed a miracle at all? Let me explain the premise of the question. In Jewish law, although we want to utilize pure oil when it comes to the lighting of the menorah, when it comes to performing rituals in the temple precincts, there is a concept, and that is Tuma, Hutra, Betziba. Impurity is permissible for the needs of a community. In other words, although in the idyllic way we would always use pure oil, and we would make sure there would be nothing that is contaminated in the service in the temple, if it were to be a situation, extenuating circumstances, which if ever there was extenuating circumstances, it was here, and therefore for the sake of the community, for a national need, therefore it would be justified to use impure oil. So in other words, the question we are asking is quite simple. We didn't need Chanukah miracle. They could have just relied on the other flasks. There was plenty of oil around, don't get me wrong. And wherever they walked, there were flasks of oil. They may have been defiled by the Greeks, but it was still olive oil. It would have lit the menorah until they got new oil. And there is this dispensation in Jewish law. It's there in black and white. Tuma, Hutra, B'tzibur. That for a communal need, where there is an extenuating circumstance, you don't have pure oil, use use the impure oil. Well, this was extenuating circumstances. They had a dispensation. So why is it they went further to search for the pure oil and therefore were not prepared to compromise and to rely on this dispensation? And the answer, friends, lies in the heart of Chanukah and lies in the heart of what it means for us to make improvements and change to our lives. Listen carefully. It's a phenomenal idea. And this is as follows. What does the word Chanukah actually mean? So one of the answers to that question is the word Chanukah means dedication. Chanukah was the time when the Hasmoneans were able to rededicate the temple. That's what Chanukah means. So therefore, when you are starting out and you are rededicating something, you are starting anew. This is a new beginning. We are laying the foundations. And when you're laying the foundations, you have to have strong, sturdy foundations. You have to ensure that there is no fault, no cracks, no hairline cracks. If you have a building and you have the slightest fault in that building, if it is on the 20th floor, it doesn't matter. You can repair it. You'll plaster over it. You'll cement it. You'll make it good. If that flaw is found in the foundations, that building sooner or later is going to crack and it could even fall. A flaw in the fundamentals, a flaw in the foundations is something that will project into the future. Here, the Hasmoneans realized that what they were involved with when they rededicated that temple after the Hellenists, after the Greeks had defiled that temple, it wasn't just the temple, it was the whole of Judaism. Jews, as we've said time and again, fundamentally, in essence, the whole nation, most of the people, even the sages, had become romanced with the Greek philosophy, and they were no longer dedicated to their faith. And therefore, this was their time not just to dedicate the temple, but it was symptomatic. It was signify the fact that this was a time when the Jewish people were going to rededicate their lives to their faith, to their God, to their beliefs. And when you're doing something, when you're starting anew, it is essential that you make sure that there are no flaws, that your actions are beyond reproach. And therefore, it was essential. They recognized the importance of the symbolism of lighting that menorah. It wasn't just reigniting the menorah. That they could have used second-grade oil. This was a rededication of a temple. This was a rededication of Judaism. This was a renaissance they were beginning for Jewish faith, for Jewish continuity, for the future of our nation and our people. And therefore, everything had to be to the highest standards. They could not allow any flaws, any cracks, any blemishes to start out. Everything would be built for the future on these foundations. And that's why they went about looking for the very best oil. And that is the message of Chanukah. It's a time for rededication and for us to ensure that when we're going to make starts, we're going to make improvements, let's start out making the very best we possibly can of any situation. If we're starting something anew, let's do it in the best possible way. Let's invest time and money and effort to ensuring that we give it our best shot. We give our all so that we build on firm foundations. Idea number one. Idea number two is a beautiful story relating to a lady called Sonia Tomakin. Sonia Tomakin was a guest of Rabbi Y.Y. Jacobson, and he told the following story about her. She had emigrated from the Soviet Union to the United States, and she was attending a conference in 2008. I think she was a journalist, and she was attending, in any case, this conference. And it was a very high-profile conference in Philadelphia. Mikhail Gorbachev was attending that conference, and he was going to be honored by the President George Bush with one of the greatest accolades and honors he could receive after the Nobel Prize, which in fact he already had. And that was the Liberty Bell. Liberty Bell was going to be awarded to him for the extraordinary contribution he had made in bringing down the Iron Curtain, ending communism, bringing down the Berlin Wall, and so many differences and changes that he had made in terms of the freedoms that he had restored to the Russian people's lives, to the civilians. So therefore he came to this ceremony, this conference, and he was going to receive this award. Sonia Tomakin couldn't believe what she was watching. She's now a free lady, able to practice her faith as a Jewess, and she's sitting there and watching this great man, Mikhail Gorbachev, who enabled and facilitated all the Jews to be able to either emigrate or to practice their faith in Russia. And she's seeing him receive this reward, and tears rolling down her face as she realized the significance of the moment. And she needed to be excused. She got permission from security, high security. You can imagine Gorbachev and Bush were there. And as she comes out the washroom, lo and behold, she almost bumps into Mikhail Gorbachev. And Mikhail Gorbachev, she sees in front of him, and she says to him that she wants to thank him. She wants to express her gratitude that she cannot describe. She says, Mr. Gorbachev, I cannot describe what you did and have done for my people, for the Russian people, for my family. You have given us our lives back, and therefore I would be grateful if you could autograph this picture. It was I think a ticket, which was the ticket to get into the event. And Mikhail Gorbachev said that quite the opposite, without missing a beat. He says, your life, he said, as he was giving the autograph, your life is my autograph. Your life is my autograph. And if we think about it, in other words, what Mikhail Gorbachev was saying was the fact that this lady and her family and her people were living the freedoms and being able to practice their faith and appreciating those new liberties and utilizing them in the way that he had intended. For this was Gorbachev's life's work. He was seeing play out in front of him his very life's work. And I think that our lives, the lives of the Jewish people, are God's autograph in the way that we live our lives, in the way that we are a light to the nations. That is an autograph. We hopefully are making an impression, and God, acting in a godly fashion, leaves tremendous light for those around us, which no doubt will bring about change. We continue now after that beautiful story with Psalm 23. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He causes me to lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Even as I walk in the valley of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You set a table before me in the presence of my adversaries. You anointed my head with oil, my cup overflows. May only goodness and kindness pursue me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord for the length of days. Memorial prayer. Adon Olamim Zacho Es Nishmos Elisheva Bas Michael Bernstein, Yaakov Ben Shlomo Cohen Curtis, Zilla Bas Yaakov Erdman, Hinda Bas Yaakov Gili, Yisrael Yuvia Ben Abba Moshe Wolfson, Leah Bas Bible, Rav Yaakov Zvi Ben David Aryeh, Tzivia Bas Mordechai, Avram Ben David Slavin, Shlom Ben Yisrael Morris, Ipera Fegel Bas Ruben Bar, Shalom Ben Yaleli, Ben Bas Bible, from Moshe Shamos, Yaakov Shmuel, Kela Bela Bas Hanach, Yim Yaochiva Ben Achav Moshe Elias, Mark Bas Ben Yomen Shal Chuli Lamam Began, Aiden Teimunuch Hasam Lachim Belarachamim, Yatsi Rein Beseita Kanafov Yalamim, V'yitzobas Achais Nishmasam Adonai Nachlasam, V'yanuch V'shamish Gavam, V'namar Amen. Long life wishes to all that are saying Kaddish or would be saying Kaddish or in their year or have your side. Now we say Refuah Shlema prayer, and we'll have in mind Liora Bas Batcha. Mi Sheberach Avaseinu Avram Yisrael Yaakov Moshe Aaron David Shlomo Yivarech Rebbe Zacholim Bavo Sha'anu Mispalim Liora Bas Binyamin Bavo Sha'anu Mispalim Bavuram B'Choseradosh Baruch Yibalei Rachim Aleihem Lachem Alefosam Yishlach Lem Fushlem Shmom Lecholim B'Soch Shach Yisrael Amen. Wishing everyone long life, keep well, keep safe. Starting now on my Zoom, which is, I don't know, the usual Zoom, 661-975-7371, 661-975-7371 is a Hallel event for ladies. Have a great day, keep safe, keep well, look after yourselves.